In this video, I want to cover some of the updates we've made to remediation actions. Really a couple minor things we've done, but they may have some useful features for you all in all. So one of them, just to highlight, is that we've done a couple ways in which you can use the remediation actions. One is you can, as you had in the past, you had the ability to associate a remediation action to a rule and say this is the specific remediation actions that are applicable to this rule. The other way that we've now added this is you can do this kind of apply globally, which means this remediation action is going to apply to any finding that's out there. But you will see this is coupled with this available condition. So, and part of the available condition, current represents the finding record. So you can do like current.rule equals X, or current has a certain priority level, right, or score level that you can use in the condition. Or in this case, you can do things like this. Does a table exist of demand management, for example? So those basically mean you can have a global remediation action, but have conditions under which they display or don't display. Now, the other change we made, which is what I'm mostly going to cover here, is that some of the remediation actions, one of the limitations that we saw with the remediation actions is that they were just all server-side code to be applied, executed on your behalf. And we do have intentions to open it up to do kind of call a workflow. Right now it's basically script in widget. But what we've added in this widget concept is now you have the ability to say I want to define a service portal widget. And if I kind of call this remediation action, I can do a lot of things with the widget, right? I can pass in the finding. I can prompt for information. I can then perform actions based off of that in the server-side script, and then maybe I can update the finding record to be completed, validated, etc. So we wanted to have a way to which you could have a more robust way to prompt for information, act on the finding, and deliver those results. So let me show you with this. So in this case, I'll activate this open demand record. Now this is a remediation action we are shipping with our version 2 as an example, mostly to highlight ways in which you can create your own kind of widget-based remediation actions to do prompts and act off of those items. So let's highlight how this would work, right? So and the idea behind this particular one is that I could have a finding that I'm not ready to resolve right now, but I want to track kind of through a demand record that activity, right? So I can come into here, see I've got an item, this demo cleaner, something to be fixed. Now one of my actions in here is this run open demand record remediation action in my list. Now I'll see the same thing if I go to any of these other items as well, right? Because it's global, not conditionally bound to the individual finding. So when I run this, instead of going straight to a kind of processing state of the finding and trying to run the code in the background, now it's popping up a widget, which is basically in this case popping up a modal to capture information about as an input to this process, right? Which is capturing kind of the details around how do I want to name my particular demand record. Is it strategic versus operational? Is this an enhancement? And under what portfolio do I want to put this into? All right, so once I've filled in my different prompts, I hit create, and then it's going to come back here and basically move this to an in progress kind of status to say it's kind of being worked, but it's being worked through this demand record, right? Which you'll see some of the things that happen in here is the demand record. We've added a comment of which demand record we've created and associated to the finding, but we've also done the reverse in that there's information kind of stored in the demand record that's created to say this ties back to this given remediation task, which is the source of this particular finding and issue. So let's quickly just show a little bit of what this widget looks like, just so you can kind of get a sense of kind of how this is constructed. And again, this is a good example, one that you can kind of clone, build into your own. And the main things I want to highlight inside this widget is that you will see the kind of what is passed in from the finding into the widget is this kind of input sysid, which is going to be the finding ID that's passed in. You also see task ID kind of passed in, which is the remediation task record. So this gives you kind of the context, right, of which record are we interacting with, or what's the source finding that we're interacting with. And then a lot of what's happened here is it's basically set up some of the default values for the demand record, building some of those choices and choice lists and drop downs. So that's basically the extent of it I wanted to cover in terms of highlighting that you can now use widgets and you can use kind of your own code as a way to kind of prompt for informations and act off the finding, make updates to it, create other records that you want to interact with, but through some kind of interactive interpretation or interactive updates from the consumers. So hope this is helpful and hope this is useful utility for those creating their own kind of updates to the EIA application. Thank you.